Welcome back to News and Views, heard here on the Mighty 790 KFGO and Super Talk 1270 KLXX. Let's tie in now with North Dakota's lone Congressman Kevin Cramer. Congressman Cramer, good to have you on News and Views.
Good to be on with you. And did you say alone or loan?
Loan. I hope you're not alone. You got a staff, man.
Yeah, right.
Congressman, I want to talk to you about the efforts on in the U.S. Congress to separate out the Farm Bill. Obviously, we'll get to the issue of why it failed and what your perception is of why it failed. But I heard Colin Peterson speak to this yesterday about how dangerous he thinks this is to separate out the Farm Bill. I want your thoughts on that.
Well, I think he's right and I think there are a lot of people that perceive it as sort of a dangerous track to go down. And I think a lot of people, and including a lot of farm groups, have come to the realization that this may be the way to pass the Farm Bill this year. Their concern is, 5 years from now when we bring it up again or have to, have a new Farm Bill and reauthorize a Farm Bill, that the coalition that creates a majority of, urbanites or liberal urbanites that support food stamps and rural conservatives that support the farm program, that coalition is busted up and it may not work the next go around. And that's the fear. I am not as afraid of it as some people are. I'm at least willing to think about it and talk it through and talk with farm groups, because we do have two issues. And one is, how do we get a farm bill to the Senate so that we can have a conference committee and reconcile it, realizing that whether we separate the food stamps from the farm bill, from the farm piece this year or not, it's likely that it'll come back, put back together.
Well, but, in the end, something needs to happen, and
something needs to happen, yeah. Joel. And so that's exactly right. So how do you measure that, calculate that in the context of forever? And we're in changing times. I think there's no question. I would say, Joel, for the first time since I've been paying attention, that the ag piece actually is more popular than the food stamp piece, and that's never been the case. I think that the biggest winners in the marriage between food stamps and the farm provisions has been the farmer.
So if you separate this out right now,
yeah.
You believe as North Dakota congressman that there's enough votes to pass an ag bill standing alone?
Well, I don't know if there is, Joel, but I would say this: if there isn't, we shouldn't bring it up. In other words, the only reason to vote on this is to pass a farm bill. The only other reason I could think of to vote for it would be to demonstrate to those that have always wanted to separate it, to demonstrate to them that we were right all along and that this isn't the way to pass a farm bill. Because here's what I will say: we will pass a farm bill. And if we try this method of separating food stamps from the ag piece and it fails, then we have to move the other direction. And I think a lot of this is an experiment, and we'll just have to find out which way gets a majority. So either it becomes more conservative, and I've said all along, if you want 218 Republican votes, and we've never passed, I don't think, a farm bill with that way. We've always had a very bipartisan farm bill. We've never passed a farm bill without a lot of Democrat votes. So we can either pass a Republican-only farm bill, but I'm afraid it's not the kind of farm bill that a lot of people would like, and that may be the area, the direction we're going for now.
Well, after the farm bill that was in front of you, mm-hmm. that came up, there were amendments added to it which you voted for,
yes.
that put cuts into the SNAP program.
Right.
The bill failed because the Democrats from the cities, the more metro areas, said, you know what, you guys brokered a deal, you didn't stick to the deal, we're out of here. The bill failed. What would make you think that anything would change now, thinking that there's enough votes to pass a farm bill, when those very same people you're trying to separate away from, knowing that the conservatives in your caucus are looking to cut food stamp program even more? And so why in the world would you believe that, hey, we can separate this out and have this thing succeed, when you've already proven once that by supporting those amendments, you killed the farm bill?
Well, Joel, you have to get more people than the 194 or so that we had before. And so you either get them from the left or you get them from the right. And so you can either move more right and get more Republicans, and that's what I think they're trying to do now with the separation. While keeping in mind, the goal is, and the commitment from leadership is, it's the exact same bill that we voted on before. Not an open process, not new amendments or anything like that. But on the ag side, it's the exact same bill. If we can't get 218 votes that way, then I think we go the other direction and we go back and we roll back an amendment or two. But I would say this, Joel, there were 103 amendments on the floor of the House of Representatives on the ag bill. It was a very open process. And I won some and I lost some. Colin Peterson won some, he lost some, and on it went. The idea that one amendment at the end, that, by the way, the amendment, all it did was it gave states the authority, if they want to do a pilot program that would require, if they chose to, able-bodied men without dependents to have to work to get food stamps. That was the thing that was so offensive to so many Democrats. And I think we should also remember that the farmer in this is taking a 10% cut, whereas food stamps are taking a 3% cut.
But the Republicans and Democrats in the House Ag Committee themselves told you and others that if this coalition is broke, the bill will fail. I mean, they said that. And the amendments were tagged onto this bill. The bill failed. I understand in the end you voted for the bill, but you also voted for the amendment. So
yes, I did.
what I'm asking you, Congressman, because I have thrown this out there, and I don't think it's fair to do without throwing it directly to you, Kevin, which is one of two things happened there. Either you knew that the amendments would kill the bill and you didn't care if the bill died because you had another strategy another day, or you didn't know that the amendments would kill the bill, in which case that's more dangerous to me. And I'm curious which one of those two it is for you, Congressman.
Well, first of all, I don't think the amendments should have killed the bill, and frankly, I don't buy the excuse that a bunch of Democrats left the bill over one amendment. Because I didn't leave the bill over one amendment.
Well,
there are 103 amendments. This is a deliberative body of 435 people with diverse ideas. So that I reject that sort of notion. And if frankly, and by the way,
but your office issued a statement, Congressman, saying that Democrats killed the Farm Bill.
We didn't have enough Democrats to pass the Farm Bill. Yeah, a bunch of Democrats left the bill, or at least they didn't deliver on what they said they were going to deliver in terms of votes.
That's because the deal went awry. I mean, for their districts, and it goes back to the heart and soul of this whole separation issue, Congressman. The deal was there that allowed the SNAP program to move forward and not have the cuts that the Tea Party members of your caucus wanted. Right. And you guys broke that deal by adding these amendments to it.
See, I don't buy the whole deal brokerage thing, Joel, because it's a deliberative body of 435 people. It was not that offensive of amendments. Like I said, I lost some amendments, Colin lost some, other people, and I don't think they ever wanted it. Let's remember, President Obama issued a veto threat before the First Amendment was offered. Nancy Pelosi announced her opposition before the First Amendment was offered.
I've never seen your caucus worried about what President Obama says ever. I mean, to that I will give you credit.
I'm not defending my caucus. What I'm saying is that we lost. We didn't have very many Democrat votes. We had 24 Democrat votes.
But that isn't hard, Kevin, to figure out why. Is my point. I'm not trying to argue with you as much as what I'm trying to say that by voting for those amendments, in effect, you killed the ag bill.
No. See, I reject that because what that does is that gives everybody who voted no an excuse for voting no. I don't buy that, and I don't let my own people off the hook.
Do you and the others in your caucus who did this then, do you bear responsibility now for passing an ag bill? And second part of that question, Congressman Cramer, do you believe that the Senate is bluffing or not bluffing when it comes to saying there will be no extension?
Well, I believe that, and I believe we're committed to the same thing in the House. The question is, what will the House version of the bill look like? And we need to pass a House version of the bill to go over to a conference committee. And I don't like talk of somebody in the Senate saying, well, that's a non-starter, or we reject that. No, let's get two bills passed. That's part of the problem in this town, is that everybody wants perfection in their particular conference, and the reality is you got to get the two conferences together and have a conference committee that reconciles the differences. I'm not afraid of that process. I never have been. I would vote for the bill whether it had all those amendments or didn't have those amendments.
What was so wrong with the version that was brought to the floor by the House Ag Committee? You had bipartisan support in the House Ag Committee. You had Republican and Democratic support alike, and then it comes to the floor of the House where you have the majority and amendments start getting tacked onto it. If your goal is just exactly what you just said, which is to get a bill into conference committee and work on it there, what was so wrong that amendments started getting tagged onto it where votes started peeling off?
Because that's the process in the House of Representatives. Right now, we've gone through dozens and dozens of amendments on the water and energy appropriations bill. It's an open deliberative process. It's a much more open process than the Senate, and that's why it's called the People's House. So by the way, there were Democrats that offered amendments that I voted for and that passed. Things like clamping down on counterfeit labeling for fruit, for example. That's a good idea. A Democrat brought it in an amendment. I voted for it. It passed. It's not like just only Republicans were offering and passing amendments on this. This was a bipartisan process all the way to the end. But the idea that a committee brokers a deal, and that's the deal, and everybody in the conference has to vote for it, denies the autonomy of each individual member and the people that they represent. That's not how the House of Representatives works, Joel.
Is there anyone in the House of Representatives walking around who calls themselves a conservative that realizes by not doing anything when it comes to the Farm Bill that in effect you're spending more money, you're subsidizing more by allowing things to go forward in its current form?
Yeah, now you're in my wheelhouse because now that I've not let Democrats off the hook for voting against the Farm Bill. As you might have noticed, I made the front page of Political and Roll Call a couple of weeks ago, taking on my own party, because there are about 50 Republicans. There are about 50 Republicans, about 150 Democrats who will only vote for perfection, even if it means sabotaging progress. That's just the reality that we live in out here, and it frustrates me to no end. And we had 5 or 6 chairman of committees, including Paul Ryan, who voted against the Farm Bill because it wasn't good enough for them. And you're right. And we've stated it 100 times, and I'll state it 100 times before this day is over to conservatives. You've missed the opportunity to reform food stamps at all by doing this, and you certainly will by separating. They can, if we separate it, Joel, I think Democrats win big in this because we have a Democrat Senate. And they'll come back with no food stamp reforms from conference committee. But all of these conservatives will have had their opportunity to vote for major cuts in food stamps that will never happen. And somehow that makes them sleep better at night. That doesn't help me a bit. I prefer some food stamp reforms along with farm reforms. And the farmers are willing to take the reforms. But those on the other side, on the food stamp side, aren't willing to take those reforms. So I've been as hard on our 50 people as I've been on the 30 or 40 Democrats that didn't vote for the Farm Bill that I think should have. I actually think separating it is a winner for Democrats. I don't know why they wouldn't all vote for it, because at the end of the day, they're going to get no cuts in food stamps and probably more cuts in agriculture.
I go back to the issue of the committee itself, which you know the legislative process. Yep. You're no stranger to it. And when you have a committee chairman come out and say, this is the product, this is what we've come, we can get the votes, and then you have a minority ranking member like Colin Peterson come out and say, this is the product, don't mess with it, let's get the conference committee on it. It gets to the floor, and a vast majority of Republicans tag on amendments to it, which put in the Democrats' eyes poison pills to it. And then the Democrats say, well, if that's the case, if that's what you believe, you've got the majority here, go pass it on your own. I'm going to be honest with you, Kevin. I don't blame the Democrats. You have the votes on the House Republican side, and you obviously had the power to put the amendments on it. Pass it.
Well, I'm with you on that, and you'll read about it. I've become quite an icon around here in terms of this bill because of what I've said publicly. And my greatest frustration are those people like a chairman of the Judiciary Committee, a former chairman of the Agriculture Committee, who put an amendment on the bill that, frankly, was aimed right at Colin Peterson's, most important process, the dairy provision. Passes the amendment. I voted against it, by the way. I voted with Colin on that, and then votes against the final passage of the bill. That lacks legislative integrity in my mind.
Thank you for that.
And I've said it out loud. And
it clearly is an attempt at peeling away votes and then killing the bill. And that's what the amendments did. And that was the point I've been trying to make from this bully pulpit. Congressman, I know we're short on time. I got a call before you came on from the people of a gentleman up in the Devil's Lake area. He's worried about takings on land. And I know you're going to be holding a series of meetings. And, for what it's worth, these guys are frustrated with how they don't get reimbursed with the ag bill and everything else for land that's been taken from them. So I just said I'd pass the word along to you, and I just did. Okay?
Yeah, I appreciate it, and absolutely we're on it. And Colin, by the way, has had a strong commitment as well to finding ways to reimburse people for water storage that is not their fault.
Okay. Well, Colin's words on this ag bill, trying to separate, is just lunacy.
That's what he says.
And I'll stick by it. So,
yeah.
Congressman Cramer, good to talk to you.
We need a bill. Thanks, Joel.
Appreciate it. Congressman Kevin Cramer.